So yeah, there was plenty of killing and red wedding vibes and also some serial killer musings, but to me the most pivotal scene in this episode was surely the shower scene. So important. So important. American Horror Story 1984, Episode 2, Mr. Jingles Recap and Review. Hey Twisted People, it's your Twisted Girl here, and I am reviewing and recapping American Horror Story 1984, Episode 2, Mr. Jingles, because like I said in my first episode review, I am a sucker for the 1980s nostalgia, and they did not disappoint in this second episode, especially when it came to the slasher genre, but also some supernatural stuff too. Also, I'm going to be getting into some predictions because I definitely have a few after this episode and my favorite scene. Although I'm pretty sure you can guess what that was already. This episode revealed that there is so much more going on at Camp Redwood than initially thought when it came to episode 1, and I am so here for it. I love the twists and turns, the not knowing exactly what happened exactly in all the scenes because of the cutaways, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And also, I feel like it really threw enough at you where it was like, we're going to make it so you can't confidently make a prediction. Like, you really don't know where any of this is going, which makes for an exciting time to still make predictions and see if we're going to be completely wrong. So Dr. Karen was killed by Mr. Jingles after alerting Margaret to Mr. Jingles breaking out of prison, which, I didn't think she'd go that quickly. I kind of thought it would be kind of like a Michael Myers, and you remember his psychiatrist throughout that franchise? I thought it would be kind of like a back and forth, like her ultimately trying to understand him and get him to come back to the asylum and things like that. And yeah, she totally just got killed in the second episode. Brooke's red wedding occurred, and I was not expecting that. Like we saw in the first episode, she had a wedding ring, and we didn't know what that was about. I thought it would take a little bit longer for them to reveal the backstory of that, but it did not. They revealed it, or her version of it, because everything is not what it seems it could be in this show, of course. So it reveals that she had a wedding, very abusive, all types of red flags. When it came to her fiance, he shot the guy that he thought she was sleeping with, and her father, oh my gosh, and himself, and basically got red blood all over her wedding dress. So that was a lot and abrupt and sad. Montana's response to this was to kiss Brooke, which was, I kind of expected that happening. She was kind of, flirting with her hardcore in the first episode, even though she tried to say, oh, I'm not a lesbian, but yeah. Yeah, you were totally on her. Not saying she's like complete lesbian, but she totally was like vibing on Brooke. So I wasn't surprised that happened. Brooke didn't necessarily like rebuff her, but yeah. We find out that Xavier had been blackmailed into doing gay porn by who I'm going to call gay porn guy Blake. And gay porn guy Blake, what it seems, was the one that called him in the first episode. If you remember, Xavier got this really weird conversation, like voicemail about like taking his penis and leaving. And so we find out that gay porn guy Blake was the one that left that and basically wants Xavier to keep doing gay porn. Although Xavier's like, I'm not gay and I don't want to keep doing gay porn. So Xavier tries to get gay porn guy Blake to check out Trevor, Big D Trevor, in the shower to somehow, I don't know why Xavier thought that Trevor would be down to do gay porn, or why, I don't even understand why the Blake guy was the one, like, even gave into that, because it's like, well, if Trevor doesn't need to do gay porn, why would he want to do gay porn? But anyway, so they go over there, and while gay porn guy Blake is checking out Big D Trevor in the shower. Oh my god, that shower scene. While he's checking out Trevor in the shower scene, he gets killed by someone. We don't see who actually kills him, but someone drives, a stake or something in his eye while he's looking through the peeping hole, and gay porn guy Blake dies. Shower scene. let's just acknowledge the shower scene again. I love the back and forth between the boys of this cast so far. Like, the characters are so funny. Like Chet, who's also, if you notice, was checking out Big D Trevor's. I'm just calling him Big D Trevor. That's my name for him. Was checking out Big D Trevor's, Big D, in the shower, and Ray was hilarious. But then they basically find, porn guy Blake dead at the wall. And Trevor also notices. He was like, he must have been checking me out, which was so hilarious. And so then all of them converge because Brooke, and I'll get to what happened with Brooke in a second, but Brooke and Montana find the boys, and Xavier comes back because I guess he walked off, and they basically find this dead body. So basically everything that Brooke had been saying pretty much comes in fruition, or at least everyone now acknowledges it, because up to that point they were still kind of like, you're just, freaked out because Ramirez attacked you. Which gets to Brooke being attacked by Ramirez, because as we saw in the first episode, Ramirez somehow made it to Redwood, which, like I said, everything doesn't seem like it's what it seemed. I thought that was a little too convenient, but yes, Ramirez is at the camp, and he attacks Brooke, and she gets away and then runs off. Why not just keep beating him and killing him? But she runs off. I don't know. Total slasher movie trope right there, right? So she runs off and she finds, Montana, and then that's when they go and they meet up with the boys who are looking at the dead body of gay porn guy Blake. So this is where stuff starts to get real weird, right? Like, Ramirez gets knocked out. He wakes back up to go after Brooke, but then he comes across Hiker Guy, right? We don't know who Hiker Guy is at this point. And he comes across Hiker Guy, who the kids had found in the first episode, but who we also thought Mr. Jingles had killed in the first episode by, nailing him to the door that Brooke, found him at, even though he disappeared. So then Ramirez, of course, being the serial psychopath that he is, the serial killer psychopath that he is, kills him. The Hiker Guy is like, you shouldn't be here. He kills him anyway. He walks off. Next thing you know, Hiker Guy then reappears. And that's when we realize, okay, either Ramirez is hallucinating or something's not right here, right? So he kills him again. And Ramirez, even though he's a serial killer, is like, something's amiss. So in his next time of killing the guy, or trying to kill the guy, he takes his ID. And then he goes to Margaret, who, like we saw in this episode, didn't seem too fazed that Mr. Jingles came back. She's just very determined to have this camp happen. And so he goes to Margaret, and he's like, yeah, I want you to tell me what's going on. How Ramirez knows that Margaret is the person to go to, although he kind of throws out a line of, you had the better cabin, so I assumed you run things here, as though, Ramirez, the serial killer, is going to, management to be like, hey, what's going on at your camp? I came to kill somebody, but some other weird stuff is going on. Can you let me know? And so they have a bonding moment, which... okay, I got some flirtation vibes, she didn't seem to have a problem that he worshiped Satan, he seemed to be cool that she was about the Christianity thing, and they somehow had this common thing of, you can do whatever you want as long as you blame it or give the credit to the higher power of either Satan or Jesus. And we also get Ramirez's backstory in the midst of this. I guess that's fine for people who don't know Ramirez's backstory because, well, you can look on Wikipedia and other places. It's pretty brutal. They kept it true to form. They didn't, it might seem, funny enough, if you don't know about, Ramirez's background, you would think what happened in that episode was just like American Horror Story, just so outlandish. But I assure you, if you do the research, all of that happened and then some. They didn't even go into everything that happened. They just go up to the point where his cousin kills his wife in front of Ramirez when he's 10. And there was some other stuff that just started happening after that this guy had a really crappy upbringing. It just was not a good time. It's a weird line though, because you see this background, you see him kind of confessing to her, but Ramirez was a serial killer and he was a horrible person, and there are plenty of people who go through trauma in their lives that don't turn out to be serial killers, so I can't feel too much sympathy. But from what I hear, once again, for those of you who are new here, this is my first time watching a full season of American Horror Story. I've heard that this show has a tendency sometimes to sympathize with the killer, or at least make them sympathetic at times, which, some people think is problematic, and some people are like, yeah, well, layers and nuance, sure. I walk a fine line with that. I mean, it's not like they made it up. It's not like they were like, let's give Ramirez a sob story so people feel for something for him. They basically show what really happened to him when he was younger, some aspect of that. So you can interpret that however you want. Why they chose to give him a backstory in that moment, not sure, but it happened. And so Margaret then, recruits, because she's bonded with Ramirez, the serial killer, to kill Mr. Jingles. So I feel like we're about to have some like Freddy versus Jason kind of face off with these two killers, one the fiction one and the real one, going at each other somehow. Nurse Rita is supposedly, I guess, attacked by Mr. Jingles. We don't actually see it, do we, right? Like, he shows up at her place and somehow she gets out, and she said, I locked him in there. Okay. And so she meets up with the kids. They, crash the car that they were all trying to get out in, basically crashed and it's not running, so they split up. Total slasher trope, into two groups. Half of the group goes with Rita to get her keys for her car. The other half goes with Trevor, Big D Trevor, to get the keys to his, motorcycle thing. I don't know how many people are trying to get out of there on that. But, so yeah, and then the episode pretty much ends with, the ones who go with Rita dealing with perhaps Mr. Jingles banging on the door trying to get in to kill them. And then the other half is Xavier basically having a breakdown while they're trying to go, and he's just like, I caused all this. I don't know why he suddenly pulled a 180 and like just having a complete breakdown, but they went there, and that's where we like kind of left off at least with them. We also see Margaret go and confront who happens to be Jonas, the counselor from 1970, right? Turns out, seemingly he's a ghost, and seemingly he didn't realize he was dead. We get another flashback, this time with Jonas saying he saw Margaret in the cabin in 1970 covered in blood. He ran off because he was so scared. He tried to call someone, the phone was dead. He runs out, he gets hit by a car, supposedly by Mr. Jingles, and Mr. Jingles kills him on the road. Margaret is like, oh, that's so Mr. Jingles was in the car and killed you on the road. So I'm going to talk about that because, yeah, that was kind of shady. So she basically, tells, Jonas, Margaret's like, well, I don't know. What am I? Like, who am I that I know that you're a ghost or not? But we clearly know something supernatural is happening here because Jonas is from 1970. And unless multiple people are having like a group delusion, he's some type of entity that's stuck around Camp Redwood. And Margaret interprets that if the kids, because somehow, Jonas is able to touch people and get in cars and stuff. I don't know how that works. If the kids hadn't brought him to Camp Redwood, he probably would have stayed out on the road repeatedly getting hit by a car. Probably, like for the rest of eternity because of guilt. Like I said earlier, I think this episode definitely established that nothing is as it seems, or maybe there's plenty of stuff that isn't as it seemed, which I'm happy about because, like I said, I love 1980s slasher genre when it comes to horror. But I also wondered, I was like, how are we going to keep this going for like 10 episodes, right? How do you keep this going without there being some type of bigger plot line going on or like a, bait and switch maybe? And so I think what episode 2 established was that there's other things going on here that's not just about Mr. Jingles breaking out and killing the kids. It's more so there's other stuff at play here. We just aren't sure what exactly. For an episode titled Mr. Jingles, we did not see a lot of him, which was kind of weird. I was like, why did they title this Mr. Jingles? I thought we were going to get like Mr. Jingles' backstory, and we actually got Ramirez's backstory. So, yeah, that was weird. So far, it's also seeming like the majority of this season is going to take place in one night. Yeah, because, with all this popping off, I can't see them going to sleep. And then waking up in like another day in Camp Redwood. No. So it seems like most of the majority of this season is taking place in one whole night. Now, once again, this goes back to the question, how are they going to keep this going? But then again, there are shows like 24, which is like the whole season is about 24 hours. So it's not so far-fetched. So Yeah, but it seems like the whole season's gonna take place in one night. And yeah, there were a lot of cutaways. Once again, I'm not completely convinced, and I'll get to this in my predictions, but we didn't see Mr. Jingles attack Nurse Rita. We didn't see that. Somehow she got out, but we didn't see exactly what happened there. There were a lot of cutaway scenes. We didn't see what Jonas actually saw when he saw Margaret in the cabin years ago. There's a lot of stuff that they're just not showing us, which is also classic, 80s slasher kind of thing. Like, you don't know what happened. Did so-and-so really die? We just see them the next moment. Where did Xavier go, right? He walked away from Blake. Maybe he walked away to get the weapon that killed him, and then he ran off. Or maybe he walked off for some reason to get his towel. I don't know. He walked off from him, but then he came back. So it's kind of like, why did he walk off? Where was he going? Exactly. Why was he just leaving Blake and just letting him peep Tom? Like, why run off from him? He knows you're at the camp. So it didn't really make that much sense. I think it was to throw you off, to make you wonder, did Xavier kill him and just act like he didn't? Also, where's the chef lady? Like, we didn't see her at all. Is she just in the cabin? No one's bothering her? My prediction when it comes to the main plot of this season, I don't think it's going to be so much who is the killer. It's going to be what's happening at Camp Redwood. Like, what is actually happening? What brought all these people together? Why this group of would-be counselors? Why Brooke? Why, Xavier? Why Margaret? They're not the most likely people to do this kind of camp thing. So what is it? Is it just by happen chance? Or is there some other sinister work at play beyond them? Because we know stuff is supernatural so far. That Jonas situation, revelation, was an example of that. So I think that's going to play into this. I don't think we're seeing so much of a slasher film anymore. There's slasher tendencies, but I think there's a bigger plot at play. I also think Margaret was the one that killed all those camp counselors back in 1970. I think she blamed Mr. Jingles. Or maybe her and Mr. Jingles were in on it. Maybe she told Mr. Jingles she wanted to do it and he didn't follow through and he ran off. I don't know. Who knows? But yeah, I think she definitely had something to do with murder, especially with her conversation with Ramirez. Then again, maybe that's too obvious. Maybe they want you to think that because they're going to completely throw us off later. Also, I'm not very sure about Nurse Rita now. I'm a little side-eyeing her a little bit because she was like, we got to go back and get the keys from the pharmacy. And then she's like, I don't want to go in. What? Like, come on. What's going on here? I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of side-eyeing her too. Although I think that's what they want too. They threw so much stuff at us that I think they want you to think certain things. And so kudos to them for that, because I'm just like, man, who is the killer? That's why I think it's not just about who is the killer. I think there's something bigger at play that involves all of these people. But yeah, I'm not too trusting of Nurse Rita right now. And lastly, once again, protect Ray at all cost. Shower scene. I think you kind of knew I was going to say that. I've been, oh my God, that shower scene. It wasn't even just that it was like gratuitous, like Mel, like semi-nudeness, which I'm not saying I'm all about semi-nudeness of men necessarily, but in these slasher things, it's always the girls who get naked. It's always the girls that are half naked, kind of showing their boobs and stuff. And I really appreciate that that's the one trope of the 80s slasher thing so far that they haven't been feeding into. They've been making the guys the eye candy, which is kind of a subversion of the trope, because usually it's the women. And in this case, they've been making the guy the eye candy. Instead of, boobs being like the main focus, they're making Trevor's Big D be the main, like, ongoing thing to want to see. So, yeah, I love that. Okay, y'all, so that is my review and recap and predictions for American Horror Story 1984, Episode 2, Mr. Jingles. Although we did not see a lot of Mr. Jingles in the Mr. Jingles episode. Let me know what you thought of my predictions, of my recap. Did you think there was something that was major that maybe I missed, that you're like, no, you should have totally paid attention to this? That's going to come into play later on. Let me know. Comment down below with your thoughts. Who do you think the real killer is? Do you think this is about it being a real killer? Or do you think, like I said, that there's something maybe supernatural going on here when it comes to all of the characters? Let me know. Comment down below. And also, be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos. Thanks for watching.